Hi everyone, welcome to the next video in our series. What does this mean? A small catechism overview. So you have these little books or the app on your phone or your tablet, and it says small catechism, but what is it and how is it helpful? Well, a catechism is a tool for instruction, and it's written in a question and answer format. The word means to teach orally. And so the idea is that a student asks a question, the teacher responds, the teacher could in turn ask a question to the student, and so on down the line. Think of your parents helping you learn your multiplication tables, right? They would ask or hold up a flashcard, okay, what's 2 times 4? The answer is always 8. And so you move on to the next one, right? The process of learning in this way is called catechesis. And it's been used for thousands of years during a Jewish Seder meal. There's a rule designated for the youngest male member of a family to ask a set of questions at the end of the meal. They're always the same questions every year, and it's the job of the oldest male member of the family to answer the questions with the same answers every single year. This is done so that at Passover, the Jewish faithful can remember the covenant with God and obey God's instructions given through Moses in Exodus 12 verses 24 to 27. You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your children forever. And when you come to the land the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall keep this service. And when your children say to you, what do you mean by this service? You shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, for he has passed over the house of the people of Israel in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians but spared our houses. As Christians, by the time of Martin Luther, it became a common practice for a catechism to teach the basic principles of our faith, things like the 10 Commandments, the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, the things that you will find in your small catechism. Martin Luther wasn't the first one to write a catechism, but his was very different in the way that it was written. Luther's small catechism was written to be used in the home, particularly for the instruction of children in the Christian faith. And it offers a simple answer to one standard question. What does this mean? If you look through each section after Luther introduces one of the commandments, in particular, you see they're printed, what does this mean? And one of my seminary professors imagined for us that Martin would be working at his desk or helping his wife Katie and his young children, maybe around the age that they were toddlers, and they would come running up to him with excitement as they explored the house, tugging on the hem of his shirt, asking, "Was ist das?" in German, what's that? A question asked with the enthusiasm and the joy and the curiosity of a child. For children curious about the world around them, this question, what's that? What does this mean? Helps to remind us that when we talk about our life of faith, about the gift that God has given us, we're to do so with the curiosity and the enthusiasm of children, exploring the world around us with wonder-filled eyes. This book, this app on your phone, it's called a small catechism because Luther wrote a larger one called, you guessed it, the Large Catechism, where the small catechism was to be used in teaching children or new converts to the faith in their homes. The Large Catechism, it follows the exact same format, but it goes into deeper detail to explain how these signs of the faith connect with one another and to provide people with an additional resource in explaining and understanding what it means to be followers of Jesus. Luther wrote this in his introduction to the Large Catechism. Listen to what he had to say. Therefore, it is the duty of every head of a family to question and examine their children at least once a week, and to ascertain what they know of it, or are learning, and, if they do not know it, to keep them faithfully at it. However, it is not enough for them to comprehend and recite these parts according to the words only, but the young people should also be made to attend the preaching, especially during the time which is devoted to the catechism, that they may hear it explained and may learn to understand what every part contains, so as to be able to recite it as they have heard it, and when asked, may give a correct answer, so that the preaching may not be without profit and fruit. And so the goal there was that the parents in the household would teach the children the small catechism so that it would be memorized and embodied in their life. And the family would attend worship together so that all of them would be strengthened and come to have a deeper appreciation for what this teaching and this instruction had to offer in our relationship with God. As I've said before, our goal here isn't for you to be able to memorize and recite back the parts of these lessons. But the goal is to know that deep within yourselves, throughout all of your lives, that you have the foundation of our faith to rely on in celebration or in grief. That the Holy Spirit has shaped you to be the people who witness to Jesus' love and forgiveness in the world in all that you are and in all that you do. That's our goal, that's our focus, and that's why we continue to rely on this small catechism. Luther wrote these lessons during the part of his life when he was in exile. He had been declared an enemy of the Church and the Holy Roman Empire. He had a bounty on his head, but local political leaders who were also upset with the Pope and the Emperor kept him safe. During his exile, Luther traveled in secret to visit neighboring churches, to worship with others who shared his critiques of the Church, and to see how the Holy Spirit was working in the lives of the people who surrounded him. Unfortunately, what he found was that with both church members as well as pastors, there were many who didn't know these simple foundational teachings of the Church. He wrote later that the people in the community didn't even know or were aware of things like the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, or the Ten Commandments, and many pastors and church leaders who may have known them couldn't tell you what they were or why they were important, or even pray the Lord's Prayer along with him. The people couldn't share the Creed, name any of the commandments. They didn't know the Lord's Prayer, and if they did, they didn't know what they were praying for or what they were confessing to actually believe. And for Luther and for us, that's a problem. And so Luther wrote the small and the large catechisms, one for the home and one for the pastors and the teachers, to make sure that everyone had access to the gospel and the foundations of our faith in Jesus Christ. A Lutheran pastor and teacher from Pennsylvania who lived in the last half of the 1800s, the first quarter of the 1900s, named Joseph Stumpf, wrote an explanation to the small catechism, and he had to say this about its importance. He said that Luther said that 3 things are necessary for everyone who would be saved. Like a sick person, they must, 1, know what their sickness is. 2, they must know where the medicine is that will cure them. And 3, they must desire and seek the medicine and it be brought to them. Our sickness, sin, is revealed to us by the Ten Commandments. The medicine, God's grace, is made known to us in the Creed. We seek and ask for it in the Lord's Prayer, and it is brought to us in the sacraments of Holy Baptism and Holy Communion. Hopefully that gives you a little insight into what we hope that this time together going through the small catechism will be for us. Again, I encourage you to read through it as a family each day. Take a section, read through it in a week. You'll be done. Rinse, lather, repeat. Again, the goal isn't memorization, but a familiarity and a closeness with this teaching of the Church. It's not so much about gaining the knowledge as it is praying on and looking out into the world with eyes that have been adjusted to see the goodness of God in all things as they are taught through the commandments, the Creed, the Lord's Prayer, and the gift of the sacraments. So with that being said, before we sign off for today, I want you to take some time to go through a few things that may keep us in the same boat as the people that Luther met as he traveled. We understand that within the church there are words or phrases or gestures, things that we do that don't always make a lot of sense because the church is the only place where we hear those words or do these things, or because within the church they mean something just a little bit different. And so before we go any farther, I want you to take the time at the end of this video and to talk with your family about some of the things that we do as the church that are just odd or don't seem familiar to other people, or words or phrases or actions, anything about our life together that you've thought, what does this mean? And after you've taken the time to do that, go on to our next video where we're going to talk about some of the ones that I have in mind, and we'll talk together in our class time Sunday about the ones that you have left on your list. So take the time to do that, and we'll see you in the next video.